purportedly behind the high onion prices in the country. According to the lawmaker,
Oil firms will raise prices by 5 pesos and 85 centavos for diesel, 360.
Some retailers say rice may get more expensive in the coming weeks. At Commonwealth,
the Philippines inflation rate rose to 7.7%, the highest recorded.
How do we know what the price should be for a good or service? The answer to this question is supply and demand. Hello everyone, my name is Mika Valstero and I will discuss the demand and supply. These words refer to the amount of stuff that exists and how much consumers are willing to pay for it by analyzing how the cost of something affects how much people are willing to buy it. One can begin to predict how consumers will react to change in price. Let's begin by looking at demand. Demand is the relationship between the quantities of goods and services that consumers desire or demand to consume, and the price those consumers are willing to pay for those goods and services at different quantities. So, demand has to do with the desire to buy something and the ability to pay for it. Both must be present. Remember, we all want a lot, but we can't have it all. The law of demand states that when stuff is cheaper, consumer will buy more of it. When stuff is more expensive, consumer will buy less of it. In other words, the price of a goods and services combined with your ability to pay for it will determine your decision as consumers whether or not to buy. For example, would you buy a commercial rice at the price of 25 pesos per kilo? Most of us would answer yes. What if it was 50 pesos? Fewer of us would. Now, what if it was 75 pesos? Very few of us would. We can illustrate this in a demand schedule, which is a table that lists the quantity of something that a person will buy at various prices in a market. Sticking with the commercial rice as an example. In the first column, we have the price of commercial rice per kilo from 25 all the way to 100 pesos. In the second column, we have the quantity demanded, which might be 4 kilos at decreasing for every increase per kilo, where it was deemed by the consumer to be too expensive to purchase. Now, what if we plotted these numbers on a graph? The result will be downward sloping demand graph, also commonly called a demand curve. This is a graphical representation of demand schedule and can be more useful way of visualizing this data. Now, let's talk about the supply. Supply is the amount of goods or service that is available. So how do we producers know how much to supply? Well, according to the law of supply, producers offer more of a good or service as its price increases and less as its price falls. Economists use this term quantity supplied to illustrate how much of a goods or service a producer is willing and able to sell at a specific price. Similar to a demand schedule, a supply schedule shows the relationship between the price and the quantity supplied for a specific goods or service, or how much of a good or service a supplier will offer at various prices. Like a demand schedule, a supply schedule lists supply for a very specific set of conditions. For example, let's list the price of commercial rice in the first column, again from 25 to 100 pesos. Then, in the second column, let's list the rice that will be supplied per day, starting with 4 kilos and going up to 16 kilos for each increases in price. Again, we could plot these numbers on a graph, and the result would be upward sloping supply graph, commonly called the supply curve. This is a graphical representation of a supply schedule. When buyers and sellers come together in a market, supply and demand have a close relationship. So, let's move forward and look more closely at how both supplies and demand can change.
So, hello everyone. My name is Sheila Mayasis. So now let's talk about the change in demand. It refers to the shifting of demand. Demand curve may be to the right or to the left. For more detailed view, let me show in a graph. So Mang Kepweng loved eating rice, so every day he consumed 4 kilos every day. And after a year, his income changed from 200 pesos to 400 pesos. So his demand for buying per kilo of rice every day has changed to 8 kilos every day. So in the graph, the demand will shift to the left due to the change in income. Next in change in quantity demanded. A change in exact quantity of a product that customers are willing and able to purchase is referred to as a shift in quantity demanded. A change in pricing is what led to the shift in the quantity demanded. For example, the price of pizza that is 340 pesos change to or increase into 510 pesos. We will get a decrease in quantity demanded from 5 pizza to 3 pizza. Next is the change in supply. When the providers of a specific good or service change production or output, it is referred to as a change in supply in economics. New technology, such as less expensive or more effective production methods, or a change in the number of market competitors, can also lead to change in supply. Now, we proceed to the quantity supplied. The general idea of quantity supplied relates to the law of supply. So the law of supply states that the supply increases as price increases. So for example, if the price of apple increases, then the quantity supplied of apple would likely to increase as well. The price of apple from 15 pesos is to 30 pesos and its supply from 70 bucks increases to 140 bucks of apple.
Hello everyone, my name is Irish Villa Garcia and today I will discuss about the change in price of goods and services. In change in price of goods and services, it affects consumers' demand for particular goods and services. Related goods and services can be substitute or complementary goods. So let's talk about substitute goods. Substitute goods are products or services that can be used in place of one another. When the price of one replacement rises, people likely to move to the other, generating a shift in demand and potentially altering both commodities' pricing. As an example, suppose the price of Nescafe rises dramatically. Some people may pick Great Taste as an alternative since it provides a similar beverage experience. This increase in demand for Great Taste may result in an increase in its price as well. On the other side, if the price of Nescafe falls, demand for the Great Taste may fall as people return to their favorite option. And now, let's talk about complementary. Complementary, it refers to the good that is purchased or used in conjunction with another good or services. In the world of products and services, complementary things are like the perfect match. They are objects that are commonly consumed or utilized in tandem. When the price of one complementary good changes, the demand and its price of its counterpart can vary. The relationship between complementary items is closely linked because price or demand changes in one can influence the other. It's intriguing to see how different products and services in the market rely on one another. If the price of complementary good increases, then the demand for the other good may decrease. For example, if the price of coffee makers increases, the demand for coffee may decrease.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Jen Rose P. Makayan, and I'm going to discuss to you the second factor that affects the demand curve, and that is change in income. So, what is change in income, and how does it affect the shift in the demand curve? The empirical study supports the notions that consumers purchase more of most goods when income increases, and consumers buy less of most goods when income decreases. While other things held equal, rising in income usually leads to an increase in the demand for goods, which is a rightward shift in the demand curve, and decreasing in income usually leads to a decrease in the demand for goods, which is a leftward shift in the demand curve. Well, there are two types of goods, which are the normal and the inferior goods. So if the demand for a good increases when income rises and decreases when income fall, the good is called a normal good. So just a reminder, most goods are normal goods. However, if the demand for a good decreases when incomes fall, the good is called an inferior good. Now, let's see the difference between normal goods and the inferior goods with these two examples. So, let's say Mika rides a bus to work when her income is low but buys a car as her income increases. So, hence in this instance, the bike is an inferior good and the car is a normal good. And another example, us as students, since most of us don't have any income yet and only rely on the allowance that is given by our parents, so when buying food, we tend to buy student meals to save money. But after we graduate and we finally have a good and stable job, we can now afford to go in Starbucks or eat at a fancy restaurants. So that's it for my discussion. And now, let's proceed to the next discussion.
Good day everyone, I'm Kyla Liwag, and in this part of our presentation, I'm going to discuss the changes in the number of buyers, changes in tastes or preferences, and changes in expectations. The first one is the changes in the number of buyers. The demand for good or service will vary with the size of the potential consumer population. Marketing experts who closely follows the patterns of consumer behavior regarding a particular good or service are usually vitally concerned with the demographics of the product. The vital statistics of the consumer population include size, rate, incomes, and age characteristics. For example, the demand for land increases as the population or the number of people also increases. Is changes in tastes. The demand for good and service may increase or decrease with changes in people's tastes or preferences. When tastes change in favor of a good, more people want to buy the good at any given price. That creates a rightward shift in the demand curve. When tastes change against a good, fewer people want to buy the good at any given price, which causes a leftward shift in the demand curve. The last one is changes in expectations. Sometimes the demand for a good or service in a given period will increase or decrease because consumers expect the good to change in price or availability at some future date. If people expect the future price to be higher, they will purchase more of the good now before the price increase. If people expect the future price to be lower, they will purchase less of the good now and wait for the price to decrease.
I'm Jennifer P. Rocas. Now let's talk about the price of goods and service. So this factor follows the law of supply, wherein both variables, the price and quantity supplied increases or decreases. Then the price of the factors of production is used to produce a good influence on its supply. So if the price of inputs used in production rises, the cost of having the goods or services also increases, making it more expensive to the producers. Given that these businesses are operating on a specific budget, they will tend to reduce the amount they will be willing to produce. Another example, if the price of plane fuel increases, the supply of air travel decreases. Next is technology. So the word technology is commonly used to describe the method by which production factors are used to make a good or to offer a service. Changes in technology arise when a new process is discovered that reduces the cost of producing goods and improves production efficiency. So, for example, using construction machinery and equipment in building houses in a subdivision, instead of relying purely on manual labor, will speed up the construction's completion. It will increase the number of homes available to be sold in the market. Then the weather conditions are seasonality. It is poor weather, including typhoons or other natural disasters, decreases agricultural commodities availability, while good weather has the opposite effect. So, for instance, if a typhoon damages the onion plantation in Nueva Ecija, the supply of onions will decrease, especially in the markets in Metro Manila. Moreover, if the product is out of season, producers will reduce their production, and if it is in season, they will start producing more.